Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ACA Voices webinar. We're really happy to see you here for this important conversation. My name is Emma Butt. I am a dialogue editor, sound effects editor, ADR recordist, and re-recording mixer across multiple genres. I also work with the Lenny Henry Centre looking at diversity in post-production sound, and I'm currently working with the TV Human Rights Forum looking at working conditions in the post-production sector here in the UK. I'm also a proud member of the Avid Community Association, also referred to as the ACA. For anybody who doesn't know about the ACA, it is a diverse group of Avid customers and users who collaborate to drive the development and ongoing improvement of Avid creative tools and solutions for the media and entertainment industry. The ACA is committed to modeling diversity, equity, and inclusion by providing an accessible environment, including underrepresented communities and individuals. In line with the mission to promote diversity and inclusivity, the ACA has created a new project, ACA Voices. In this series, we bring together underrepresented communities and individuals to share their voice and raise awareness about the ongoing lack of diverse representation in the media and entertainment industry. I am here today with two of the most amazing colleagues to share the voices of women and talk about the issues that are currently still happening regarding the representation of women in the audio and film industry. Um, I'd love to introduce Shayna Brown and Nina Hartstone. Shayna is the founder of Shayboom Audio. She's worked as an audio engineer on multiple Oscar and Emmy nominated movies and TV shows, Addy Award winning commercials, an Audie Award nominated audiobooks. She's known for her works in True Detective, White Boy Rick, and The Devil's Candy. Welcome, Shayna. I'm joined by Nina Hartstone, who is a Academy Award, BAFTA, and Emmy winning supervising sound editor who has worked in film for over 30 years. She is also the first woman in Europe to be nominated and win an Academy Award. Her musical film credits include the Queen biopic Bohemian Rhapsody and the highly acclaimed David Bowie documentary Moon Age Dream. This is in addition to films such as Gravity, Enola Holmes, and the film that everybody was talking about, Saltburn. So welcome, Nina. Before we start, for those of you who have questions, you can ask it or share your thoughts by clicking on the Q&A box in the menu bar and then typing in your questions or leaving a comment. We'll be happy to answer your questions after this discussion. So Nina and Shayna, welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Em. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
So let's get started with a nice, easy question. What does representation, why is representation important to both of you?
Who's going first?
Not an easy start question at all.
Shayna, you
It's
go.
it's a really great question. I think the industry benefits from having women in it. I think that we bring skill sets that maybe are not as natural to other genders. And in general, I want to live in a world with equality and opportunity for people like me and people who aren't like me.
I think representation is so important in our industry. We're all storytellers, and if we're telling stories only from the one kind of standpoint, that's not going to be the sort of stories that the population of the world want to see and hear. And it's really important for all genders to be included and represented in the stories that we're telling and the films that we're making, to make it because we come up with different ideas and we have different standpoints and we have different stories to tell as well.
What challenges do you think women are still facing within the audio and music industry today? Nina, could I come back to you first, please?
Sure. I think things have obviously improved quite a lot over the years. I mean, as you said, I've been in the industry for 30 years now, a very long time, since last century. and things have changed massively since I joined in the 1990s. Um, but it still feels like we've got quite a long way to go. And although representation is improving, and it is improving, I think we are beginning to create more opportunities for young women to get into audio and film. It feels like there's a bit of a ceiling of actually getting real leadership roles for women in film. And certainly in the UK, it feels like there are very few sort of HODs who are women in audio, that seems to be the next sort of part that we need to break through. It feels like we really need to try and support women not just to enter the industry, but to continue in the industry, actually work their way up to the top. And this is where, these are the decision makers, and we need to have a seat at that table.
Completely agree.
Absolutely. It's the same in the US. I think also the industry is shrinking. At least I'm seeing fewer audio houses, places are closing. There's not as much post work here. And so as there are fewer jobs, there are fewer opportunities for everyone. But, I have taught audio at a local university. I taught for 4 or 5 years, and I never had more than maybe two women in my classes. And that's part of why I taught. I don't think that's my calling, but I felt it important to show up and say, hey, for the men and the women, women can be good at this, women can do this. And so there are fewer women in general just starting on the path, which means there are fewer who are going to get those diminishing jobs.
Absolutely. It feels like there's a problem not just in one place. It's like
Yeah,
all the way along. And I go like you, I go into schools and I've been teaching as well. And I do as much of these sorts of things as I can just to sort of get the word out there and hope that maybe some of the people of the future, some of the women of the future who are interested in this as a career will see that there are women doing this job. It's not all sound guys. And
right.
so think, but it feels like it sort of drips away as they go on, and it starts at school where STEM is not as supported as it should be for girls often at school, and even girls who have an interest in audio, they start dropping off as they get older and as they go through education. And I think and then also happens as they get into the workplace. And there are many things that can put women off from doing this job, even if they get started and enjoy what they're doing. There are many points along the road that can actually end up making you think it's actually not worth it.
Well, and not to jump too far ahead, but to your point, I think women have other things in their lives, and this industry is hard. You have to stay up on, new versions of software, new kinds of software, new standards, new shows, new people, new heads of department, because the old ones have left. And if you step out, maybe to have a baby or something else similar, how do you step back in? I mean, I think that that's a question for women in general with any career, but especially ours. I think it's really hard to get back in.
It's so hard because if you're not around, people forget about you immediately.
Exactly.
And I mean, I've had 3 children, and feels like I've been playing a game of snakes and ladders where the boys get the ladders, and I get a bit of a ladder, but then I have to go down a snake every time I have a child. It's like, inevitably, I get forgotten about. Suddenly I'm not part of the landscape. Suddenly, people who were doing the same level of job as me or even below me before I had my children have carried on in their careers, and then I have to come in at a lower level again and actually start working my way up again.
Yeah.
Right.
I have vivid memories of, being a nursing mother, and I'd be in sessions and it's like, "Oh, I need to take a break." And, the men in the room don't understand. I'm about to explode. I have to step out. Um, it's part of why
Quite
I started my own company. I could say, "All right, 4-hour sessions is the max."
quite right too, and I completely empathise with that one.
Oh.
Absolutely been there as well.
I'm curious from both of you, do you think there's more that the industry could be doing then to support women who are also mothers to make sure that they stay in the industry and we don't have this talent drain?
I mean, 100%. There are a few women again who are sort of coming up in the industry. They're younger than me, who started getting to the age where they were, considering starting a family, and most of them were either told by male colleagues or felt very strongly that they were not going to be able to continue their careers. That was the moment where they were going to have to give it all up, and they just couldn't see a future of being able to work in this sort of industry that is so demanding, where you are literally, owned by the production. You have to drop everything at a moment's notice. You always have to just keep being on top of absolutely everything. They couldn't see how they could
Yeah.
make that work. And this is where I've been trying to create a little bit more flexibility in our work and make sure that people can actually, we can have women on our crew, we can have men on our crew who also want to do it. But one of the really sad things I feel like is things have got a little bit better over the last few years. But I think that's because there have been more dads who are interested in being a bigger part of their children's lives, getting home for bath time, going and seeing a school play or a recital. So they decide that they're going to go and do it. And that has started to make it more acceptable to actually just decide that you are going to choose, have a little bit more work life balance and be a part of your children's lives. Whereas I've always felt like I almost needed to hide the fact that I had children because
Yeah.
I would instantly be judged.
Oh, I feel that that's so painful, but absolutely, I've been there too. I have this dream of creating a master database where, Emma, you go have a baby, but you're on my database and I can say, hey, I've got this mix. You could do it at your home studio. It's flexible. There's a deadline, or I need some sound design, or, Nina, can you come in and cut some ADR? It's just a 1 hour session. I'll set it up for you. And so you have this network of trusted women who have worked in the industry, who know how to do it, who can slip in and out for an hour, who don't, giving them some way to stay with a foot in their careers without having to be 10 hours or 14-hour days. And I think we need some support like that, because otherwise, the door's shut completely.
One of the
100%. That is how it's got to change, isn't it?
Yeah.
One of the things that I really thought was great about the pandemic was the flexible working and being able to
Yeah.
work from home. And I worked with a female dialogue editor on a TV drama who was a mum. And because we were all working from home, she was able to go and do school drop off. Then she would start her day. Then she would stop at lunchtime to go collect her child, come back, do a few hours. Then it would be bed and bath time, and then she would work in the evening. And she was able to reschedule her day around her child, be able to spend time with them, but also then do her job. And I feel, I don't know, I'd love to hear from both of you. Have you seen the industry shift back and away from that and more demand on being in the room with clients?
I mean, interestingly, I think for me, I have found that I am working from home much more since the pandemic. I have now got a studio at home, and that's where I do a lot of work. And again, even though my children are quite a lot older now, they're in, teenager or adult, but they still almost need more time than toddlers, to be honest. And so I think it's just, actually being there and being around at home is really valuable. Just because
Right.
you're there when when you can have a conversation with your children. It's a changing landscape all the way through. But you're absolutely right, Emma. Being able to schedule your day to work. I mean, so much of our editorial work, where we are literally just sort of listening detailed to sounds, either headphones on or listening on speakers, can be done at any time of day as long as deadlines are met.
Yeah.
So I think that I personally, I feel like I've been quite fortunate. I've been able to have a really nice hybrid of being together with the team when we need to be with the team, when we're recording, when we're mixing, when we're recording ADR, when we need to really start bouncing stuff off of each other, but also being able to work from home.
Absolutely the same. And I think the remote work option increases accessibility tremendously. And I know a lot of people, Zoom kind of has a bad rep, but it helps with accessibility, no matter what, not just for moms, but people whose cars break down, or people, who, whatever it is. Some work has to be done in person. Like, we do a ton of ADR recording. Obviously, the actor is in our studio, someone has to be there, but a lot of stuff can be done remotely. And the pandemic really shook us up and made us see that it's possible and we can still do incredible quality work, even if we're remote and not being supervised. And I will say, I think I've been in maybe 2 supervised like someone in person in my studio, 2 maybe since the pandemic, because they've realized they can be out with their kids or at home or, they don't wanna come in. So it's good. We all agree, let's not go in.
Exactly. And the thing,
Pajamas, man.
do we want, there's a skills shortage, in the industry, and like, do we actually want to lose these incredible women, who've been so brilliant? Of course, they've always been brilliant at their jobs to get to even manage to stay in the industry, and so let's allow people to continue working in a flexible way so that they can actually maintain a career in this industry.
It's win-win.
Mm.
Totally agree. Nina, I want to go back to something that you actually raised earlier on, and it's about HODs and women in senior roles. I'm very curious. Can either of you think of many, if any, uh, HOD women? And Nina, exclude yourself on this one because you are a supervising sound editor, and Shayna, obviously owner of your own studio. Besides yourselves, I mean, how many can you think of in the industry in the UK and the US?
I mean, it's a
Okay.
handful. And it always seems to be also in uh it so in the editorial side, it seems to be heavily leaning towards the dialogue side. It seems to be even fewer women who are doing sound design and effects, or who are doing re-recording mixing as well. There are just so few of us doing it, across all the sort of across the board. It feels like features, TV. It feels like that is really an area that where it's all got stuck again.
Well, to your earlier analogy of you said snakes and ladders? Is in the US, it's shoots and ladders, but I think there are just more shoots, more snakes for women than there are men, and so for us to navigate all of those and get to the top, very difficult.
Do you think
It's
that's a
really
lack of Do you think that's a lack of career progression opportunities, or is it just multiple barriers based on, you know, raising children, sexism, discrimination? What do you think that comes down to?
I mean, I think one of the things I've noticed is that I seem to get offered more of the lower budget productions, despite the fact that I've worked on quite a lot of high budget productions and supervised them. It's that there seems to be a nervousness about allowing a woman to take that role on something that is high budget. I also have noticed that there are more opportunities for me where there are more women in HOD roles, such as director, editor. There it seems much easier to be accepted in that role if there's a female director, for example.
I have to say, I find it very frustrating, and I get told off constantly for this. But I do feel like the one thing that needs to change here in the UK, and I can't speak for the American industry, but the broadcasters over here have diversity and inclusion quotas that a production has to reach on every production. And currently, those requirements that are given to production companies only focus on set, and they do not focus on post
Oh,
production. And it's always been my argument that if we introduced those quotas into post, we would see an increase in women, in underrepresented people entering into the industry at mid to senior level and then progressing into HOD. But it's frustrating. And
it's
none of I mean, Shayna, what is the situation like in the States? Do you ever interact with any other senior women?
no, no, I wish I did. I mean, occasionally I'll connect to somebody and or I'll connect to a studio and it's a woman on the other end. And there's this moment of, "Hi, What's your role? Oh, here's my role. And then there's a little like, yay, oh my gosh. And instantly appreciation of like, this is going to be good. Because as you said earlier, Nina, to get to this point, we've had to be better than our peers. So, or twice as good as we'd have to be, perhaps, if we were not women. But it is so rare. I also feel like in America right now, there's a little bit of backlash against DEIB, and there's still people really, beating that drum, but there are also people saying, you know what, that's costing good people jobs. Let's just go back to merit-based whatever, not realizing that the merit-based hiring is incredibly discriminating, not in a good way. Like you want to be discriminating in hiring good people, but no, this is maybe discriminatory is the right word. So I'm not seeing that having positive effects. I agree with you completely. It would be amazing if there were a way to somehow put that into post. It's pretty unwieldy here. I don't know. We'd need the big players to step up and say this is important. Um, I don't know. I have a local, or I guess it's a state certification that says I am a minority owned business, which means I'm a woman owned business. And I'll have companies reach out and say, hey, we want to put you in our proposal for this job. And I sign on and it's great. And we're in the proposal and they get the job because they're going to use all these minority businesses. And then they don't. Like it gets them the gig, but then it doesn't trickle down to us necessarily.
And I know that sometimes I've been used, I feel, as a box ticking exercise of adding a woman to a selection of professionals who are going to be chosen to do the role, one of which will be chosen to do the role. And so it's like good to have a woman in there, that I've but
Oh,
you know that they're not putting me forward because they think I'm best for the job. They're doing it because it makes them look better, that
right.
they haven't provided a slate of all men. Um,
I hate that, but I also love the moment when they realize, oh, wait, and you're good? It's like, oh, how delightful.
yeah,
I mean,
it's
I wish I could say I was surprised by any of this, but obviously I'm not. I think the other thing that also happens, and Shayna, again, I speak from the UK perspective here, so you can definitely tell me off if I'm incorrect, but it's the credits as well. Like if you don't have the right type of credit, you can't they won't even accept you for a job. But it doesn't matter if the skill set is the same. So a dialogue edit on a documentary is going to be the exact same as the dialogue edit on the TV drama. It's just a different workflow. But if you don't have that TV drama, you're not getting anywhere. And what I see a lot in the UK is that a lot of women will enter into factual documentary entertainment and then struggle to get into high-end TV drama or features. And it's like, well, the skill set's there, but you're just trying to get us to fill in this arbitrary box that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
yeah. I
The,
think the
the
problem.
whole,
Sorry, no, go ahead, Shayna.
no, no, no. Everything you say, I love. So I just want you to keep talking.
well,
Say more.
it's just it's a constant circle, isn't it? That keeps defeating because when I then look for a crew, I do you do need to look for people who have some experience, a level of experience. Especially if I'm working on lower budget stuff, there is no space in the budget to build in training someone on the job or those kind of things. And so then I'm looking for someone who I know can literally step straight into those shoes and has a great deal of experience and join us on the team. And there are just not that many women to draw from in those roles. So where do you, it's very difficult to find the right way of, it's not difficult to find the right way. That's the wrong way of putting it. Let's start again. The 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 difficulty is that the more people, the more women are discriminated against in advancing in their roles or being given opportunities, the less women there are actually to populate our crews and to start improving diversity on our crews. That's a really difficult thing because you can't suddenly parachute someone into a role. I totally agree with what you're saying, Emma, but you can't then parachute someone into a re-recording mixer role if they have never on a high budget film, if they've never mixed anything. So we need to give them the opportunity to start trying out mixing, and actually give them the opportunity of sitting in that seat But that's not always something that you can do on every single film. You can't, that particularly on the low budget stuff. You can't. There's just no facility in there to add in extra crew and go. You know what? I'm going to bring some people on, and we've got a bit of time here where we can actually do some training. We can provide some more opportunities during this shoot, and that's the way people learn as they learn on the job.
I think it's also really high stakes. So if you hire a woman for a job and you're not 100% sure they're going to knock it out of the park, you're setting up a failure that's going to be perceived as a female failure more than just that this person wasn't the right fit. So that's a lot of pressure. I also think there's a lack of mid roles, there's a super low budget where it's like, oh, all they've ever done is this thing that I don't think highly of, which, or whatever that is. I don't actually have something in mind. Versus this person is working on these high budget films, so I know I can trust them to understand this world. There's no medium stuff of like, okay, you've done dialogue editing for this reality TV show, but we need to get you up to dialogue editing on this blockbuster, whatever. Where are the middle ones? More middle ones where people can kind of get just more experience, I think, so they can be plucked.
Yeah, and because it is, once you start working on a big team, that in itself is quite a learning curve, to work with
Right.
a larger team that you have on those slightly higher budget projects.
Yeah. And just understand the deliverables. Like previously, you may have been responsible for this large thing, but here you need to clean it up, make it super easy for the person who's receiving your files to understand it, integrate it, boom. And we don't have the time, and it is a risk if they don't know how. So we just need that middle ground.
Yes, you do.
From everything you're both saying, it sounds like we kind of need, broadcasters and streamers and anybody like production companies to introduce budget lines for assistants again because
Yeah.
yeah, editorial assistants still exist. Sound? No. Where are they?
Yeah. I forgot
Absolutely.
they existed. Oh my gosh.
In editorial, you quite often, you'll usually have, on a feature, say you'll have one editor if everything's going well, and they will have a first assistant, a second assistant, sometimes a trainee, and there's lines for all of those people. Whereas in sound, we're a whole team who don't even have one line for an assistant, let alone a trainee. In my opinion, every film should have a line for assistant and a line for trainee, and they should be on the film from the beginning to the end because a couple of runs of that and they will learn so much that they can actually then fly. But trying to actually make that happen on a feature is really difficult. And that's you're absolutely right, Emma, because it does need to come from needs to come from the budget. It needs to be allowed for. That needs to be factored into the budget so that an already squeezed budget to just get the job done is already feels impossible, let alone actually trying to do anything else whilst you're at it of any kind of training or any kind of improving things for women and other underrepresented groups as you go along.
So we've kind of already raised discrimination, but I wanted to ask, and it's not an easy question, so I do apologize. But have either of you ever witnessed or experienced bullying or discrimination throughout your careers? Who wants to go first? Shayna, you're shaking your head.
I
Shayna?
mean, all over the place. It's rampant. I just saw in the news a couple days ago, an actor passed away. And my first week, without even realizing, without putting it all together, I just felt tremendous relief because I'd had an uncomfortable session with him 20 years ago. 20 years ago. It wasn't illegal behavior, but it was enough that I have been carrying with me the fear that he would book again or someone would book with him again, and I'd have to be alone in a room with him. That's just one tiny example from 20 years ago. But yeah, I mean, tremendous discrimination. This feeling that if we're there, we're not there to do work, we're there to be a woman for outside pleasure, commentary, whatever it is. Um, and I think it's getting a lot better. I think younger women are speaking up and they understand that this is not just something, if a man squeezes their thigh during a session, they don't have to just smile and take it as a compliment, which I have been told. They can say, you know what? No, move your hand or whatever it is. So I think it's getting better, but yes, all over the time or all over the place, all of the time.
And Nina, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I echo all of that, and having been in the industry since the 90s, it was pretty bad when I started. Um, and like you say, it has got better, but it is not eradicated by any stretch. I feel like I still see and experience all sorts of things that shouldn't be happening at work. But one of the things that I notice as well these days is there's quite a lot of sort of passive aggressive kind of sexism in language, and just daily kind of, so many times I get the gentleman, oh, and lady, the othering, and the sort of either treating me differently unless I sort of perform like a man in the man's room, which I'm just less willing to. I'm just getting older, and I'm less willing to do it. I think I just try to find my own style. I mean, I still have to force myself to not apologize before I speak, because that's just ingrained in me from growing up in the 1970s and being at school, and all the boys they anything that popped in their head they just spoke, and I was never in that environment where I could actually just speak on an even playing field. I always had to think about it, think about it, think about it. Should I say it now? Should I not say it now? And half the time, especially when I was younger in my career, I would just not say it because I'd spend so long deciding whether I should even speak that I'd not bother. But that whole othering, and the other thing that I've experienced is sort of being treated with weird kid gloves of like, I'll give a note, or I'll say, "Oh, I want, do you think it should be like that?" Meaning to start a creative discussion, and then the men in the room will not want to sort of disagree with me because they think maybe I'll get emotional, or let's say most of the emotional behavior I've seen at work has 100% been from men. But anyway,
Oh,
that
yes.
the whole that's a whole other thing. But it's just like, can we just be normal? Can we actually just all interact in a normal way and be creative and be straight and just all this is what creative work is. We're all bouncing ideas off each other, and so that could be frustrating as well, because it feels like an environment is awkward just by the very fact that I'm a woman and I'm in there in a man's world.
Yeah.
I definitely echo what you say about behavior. I've had directors, female directors, and male engineers tell me throughout my career that I should cut my hair, stop wearing makeup, and dress like a man in order to have a successful career. And my response to that was to put on makeup, wear heels, wear dresses that I feel amazing in, and walk into a studio and kick ass in my job as a two-finger salute to anybody who thought that, because it is so frustrating. But that is the attitude, that we have to be one of the men, as opposed to being these incredibly talented individuals who are just as equally capable of doing the job. And I don't know about you both, but the other situation I've had is, Nina, you probably have experienced this too, but moving into dialogue editing and ADR supervision, I now have to start every single job asking the PPS not to put me in certain studios where I've experienced sexism and really aggressive sexism. And I shouldn't even have to do that. And it is horrific to start a project off on that horrible note and horrible foot of being like, I can't actually work there because they make me feel so uncomfortable. I mean, have either of you ever experienced anything like that?
Oh, absolutely. But now that I own my own place, when those calls come in, I can say, nope, we're booked. As simple as that.
Yeah, and that is the benefit of once you do become an HOD, of being able to largely surround yourself with people that you like to work with. And the thing is to fostering an environment that feels different to an all male mix room. It's generally, when we're in the final mix, that's where nerves are high, and it's generally where it's a very very male led sort of jockeying ego kind of room. And so it's those sorts of environments where actually, if you can turn it into a bit more of a collaborative space, a bit more of a creative space, a bit less sort of shoot from the hip kind of try and just take up the oxygen just because you can, and just because you know that's what you feel leadership is. Um, it feels like actually the more you can build a nicer environment in there and a more evenly balanced environment in there, most of the men that I choose to work with prefer it as well, because I end up working with men who are fantastic male allies, the people that I get on with, but where actually I just feel like I'm talking to another human being, like where gender is never on my mind when we're speaking to each other.
Yeah. That's a
Uh,
huge thing. It's sorry, Anna, do
no,
you
go ahead.
I think it's really, really hard, especially in this age of social media and the constant bombardment of what we should be and how we should look and act and feel, to figure out who we are, and then to be able to authentically bring ourselves to a workplace and know we'll be safe. Like, that shouldn't be too much to ask, but it seems that it's too much to ask.
I before I continue on, I just want to remind everybody, if you have any questions or you simply want to share your experiences with us, just click on the Q&A box in the menu bar and then type in your question or comment, and we'll be happy to answer any questions after this discussion. Um, I'm going to move on to something hopefully a bit more cheerier. And actually, Nina, you've just slightly raised this, but what would be your ideal teams or work environments to work in then?
I My ideal work environment is always somewhere that's quite fun. 'Cause we spend so many hours doing this job. I feel like I need to spend it with people that I click with, that I enjoy spending time with, where we work really hard and we try and make everything as brilliant as it can be, but we also just have a good time doing it, and everyone feels like it's an open space, obviously with a great balance across the genders. We did have a fantastic mixed room on Saltburn, with female director Emerald, who's incredible, and Victoria, our editor, and just we had a really good balanced room, and it just felt, everyone I've spoken to, everyone who was in that room, male or female, felt that it was one of the most extraordinary and wonderful experiences they've had in a mix, because of the environment that we had in there, where everybody could speak, everyone could just give their opinions, and we all collaborated. We worked really hard to try and make everything as good as it could be, but everything just felt super normal, super fun, but very hard work. And we were, pleased with where we got with the film at the end of it as well. So that feels like a real pleasure to sort of to spend the hours that you spend working hard, and working hard over months and months, and coming to that final point, and just enjoying going to work, enjoying thinking, okay, I'm looking forward to spending the day with these people, and being creative, and doing my job.
Yeah.
Um, Shayna, I feel like you've already created your ideal workplace and environment.
I mean, it's pretty awesome. We have a whole bucket of candy. We've got some puppets around for fun. I love the studio. Sometimes I'll be in between meetings out and about in the city and have a little break, and I just go sit in there. Um, I do think I have a saying that some people are in the "ain't it awful" club, where no matter what happens, it's going to be awful. Like, something, they're going to just see it as awful, and I try to avoid those people. And so if I work with someone and they're in the "ain't it awful" club, and it's, the bottom line is, what we do is entertainment. Like, we're trying to help tell stories and entertain, and to take it so seriously that you're hurting other people's spirits doesn't feel worth it to me. Um, and yet it's important to show up seriously and be able to do high integrity work, but in a place where you understand, look, I'm going to hit play on our final mix. Everyone get ready. And as I do, the computer's going to crash. It's just going to happen. That's absolutely going to happen. So let's laugh about it as I crawl under my desk to try to fix whatever's wrong. And I think the end product is going to be better if we're all in that place. The counter to the Ain't It Awful Club, which I've started with my sister, is the Ain't It Beautiful Club. No matter what's happening, let's look at what's beautiful here.
That's
Um,
so right, Shayna. And it's like that's it's a hard enough job, isn't it? Everything that we do is just hard enough without
Right.
any kind of extra negativity being brought to it. Yeah,
We haven't even talked we haven't talked about how hard the actual work is. This is just the stuff on top. Oh,
I know, exactly. We haven't got into that. But
yeah.
it's sort of slightly along those lines, I would the other thing I'd say just about the environment, we've spoken about the people, but one thing I'd say is so many rooms I go into are just not built for me. I'm not very tall. That I'll go into a mixed stage and I'll sit down and I'll go, well, who's designed? This is designed for a 5'10" male. This is not designed for a 5'3" and a little bit female. I can't see over the screens, and it's like, and actually, to me, what is really important in those rooms is lines of communication and sight lines and being able to sort of bounce collaboratively around. Apart from, oh, don't get me started on the temperature of, of most things. So, it's just all those sort of things that actually make a nice environment to spend time in. Shayna, it sounds like that is it's just all of that, isn't it? We're all there to work hard. Just let's make it a nice, welcoming place where everybody can do their best work every single day.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
am so glad you raised the height thing. Recording, because when I was freelancing as an ADR mixer and I was having to go into different studios, Jesus Christ, I used to have to carry around a pillow with me or a cushion that I could put on the chairs because the chairs were all too big for me. And in order for me to reach the desk and to reach the preamps, I would need to put the cushion behind my back so I'd be sat forward and be able to reach everything. I ended up with so many back problems going into studios, and also I was like this, like arms raised above me because they're never at like normal. I am a short, but it's designed for like 6 foot men, and it was so awful to go in and work in. So thanks, Nina. I'm a short arse as well.
Well, it's just that you realise when you do start looking around the world, you kind of go, none of this is designed for us, is it?
I mean,
All of the
go for it. Yeah.
all of the chairs in my studio are adjustable, height adjustable. I am actually really too tall. I'm 5'9" and I'm very self-conscious about being too tall. So I envy you too. But if you're ever in my studio, just there's a button, it pops the chair right up, you'll be fine. Yeah.
Um, just to remind everybody, if you have any questions or you want to add any comments, please do use the Q&A box in the menu bar and type them in there, and we will answer them when we can. I want to come back to allies. How do you think men, especially, and other people in this industry can be allies to help progress more women? Toughy question again.
It is a tough one. I mean, I think obviously trying to make sure that if they are a person who's crewing up on something, to make sure that they look to see um, you know, who is out there and ask around and see is there maybe a woman who I could actually bring on to this show? That can definitely help. And just there are, I mean, I work with, continue to work with, and know in the industry amazing male allies, and they should be using their voice to speak for us as well, because there's a huge onus on us to advocate for ourselves, which obviously we want to do, and we want to be the face of that, and we want to tell it from our perspective. But also, that puts quite a lot of extra pressure on us to do all of these things, and all of us only have 24 hours in a day. And as we know, we're all working hard and raising families and doing all sorts of other things that it becomes I would love to share the load more with some of the men in terms of this kind of advocacy. And I always appreciate if I see a man stepping up there and saying the stuff that I would have said. It's just like, "Oh, that's good. Let's have a different voice say it as well. It makes it also, it gives and it adds another dimension as well to the whole discussion. I think just being able to all say the same thing, all sing from the same hymn sheet.
I will second all of that. I think men also acknowledging the deficit of women in this industry. There's a director here. I've worked with him on many movies. He's wonderful and celebrated, and he could go anywhere and work with anyone. And he comes into my studio, and then whoever else comes in, if it's an actor, if it's a photographer, whoever comes into the studio when he's there, he's like, "Oh, and that's Shay. She's an amazing engineer, and she owns this place." And he calls it out, like, just so you know, she's not going to go get us coffee. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And actually, I will go get them coffee. But the point is, he points out that I am a capable human, even though they might have initially dismissed me because I'm wearing heels and lipstick.
So as I mentioned at the start of this, I'm part of the ACA. And I have to say, one of the best things that I found about it, I was very skeptical when I was asked to join about being put in a room which I expected it to be all men, and me being this little Irish woman coming in and being terrified to speak. And one of the best things about it was that it was not that at all. It was so many incredible women, so many people from underrepresented backgrounds were in that room with me and made me feel comfortable, made me feel like I could speak and give my opinion. And that sense of community was so important. I mean, do you think community can help solve the problems of underrepresentation within our industry in sound? Um, Shayna, can I come to you first?
Okay. Yeah, I absolutely think community is a huge part of representation, but also then retaining those women. Um, and it's everything from if you're on an all male team and they go out for beers and you're not one of the dudes, they're not going to invite you. And then you're this other, and you don't get the same quality of work experience. So I think if you're a man on a sound team and you look around and you're taking a group out for a celebratory drink after a project, or just, hey, let's get together and network, think if there are any underrepresented demographics with people that you could invite along. Like, create a place where they're welcome, they feel welcome. I think also, there are all sorts of female or woman sound groups. We've talked about many of them, and those are wonderful. And it's important, I think, to know you're not alone as a woman in this industry. Like, yes, you're rare, but there are others. Reach out to them. And I would also call on the big organizations. I mean, I'm in Austin, Texas. South by Southwest is here, and there are always, every South by, there's a panel on sound. It's some part of sound, sound in movies, sound in TV, sound in post sound. Instead of having, here's a panel, like, this one is wonderful. This is us talking about what it's like to be a female in this industry. But also, it would be nice if there was a panel at South by that's, here's a panel on post sound, and here are professionals who are wonderful at what they do. And one of them happens to be a girl, or maybe all of them do. That'd be kind of a tall order to find all of the roles filled by females. But more of that, just awareness in our community of, like, Emma, what you said, of looking around and realizing, oh, it's all guys. Like, let's change that. Let's look around, and maybe it requires a little extra thinking of, no, but I worked with a woman on this and she was good. I'm going to include her.
Yeah.
It's the start.
Absolutely, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that whole, enough manels. Can we have panels with a little bit more, bit more representative? And like you say, just have women on it because they're great at their job, not because, oh, I need to add a woman to this panel, kind of thing. But the thing is, our business, I mean, I'm a freelancer as well. I don't work for a company, and it's just like, it's built on community. It's built on, the next job comes to me and through the people that I know in my network. So having that network, anything that expands my network, and having a network of women is always invaluable. Apart from anything else, to be able to just sort of share experience, Emma, we do that a fair bit, don't we? We sit down and talk through it all, and it's just, it's useful. And there's things, practical things that I've learned from speaking to you that have, enabled me to get a trainee, for example, on Saltburn. That those kind of schemes that you would know about that I maybe don't know about, sharing information, but also just actually sharing experiences and feeling less alone is really valuable also. And like you say, being up there, and if you can see it, you can be it. So being showing the younger generation that, this is a job you could do if you're a woman and you're interested in sound. Don't think that that is unachievable, or out of your reach, or not a space that you belong, because it absolutely is. And you know being the face of it, and something like ACA providing these spaces, and these spaces for this conversation, and a platform to actually get the word out there, um, and talk, get our thoughts, our standpoint out there of what it is like to be a woman in this industry. And hopefully lots of women and men will watch this and just gain a greater understanding of what can be done to improve things, and also what it's like for us, and maybe then be a little more empathetic to us at work also.
Um, just for anybody who is watching who wants to know about the different organizations or communities, there is a website called Look Beyond the List, which has a list, as it describes, of different organizations around the world for underrepresented talent. Some of the people or some of the organizations that are included on there are Women Who Are Sound, Women's Audio Mission, Women in Film and TV. There are so many, so it's definitely worth having a look there. And especially if you're crewing up, because as we've said, if you're a male ally, you need to look beyond the list and look beyond who is in your little black book. And this is the perfect resource that you can use to try and break out of that mold. Um, Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask, what advice would you have for any women who are entering the industry at mid-career level or trying to finally reach that like head of department senior role?
I mean, it's difficult. I do a bit of mentoring for women, and I've done it for ones who are at an entry level, but I've also done it for ones who feel a bit stuck in the middle, and knowing how to um, support and just try and help move the needle and move things along a little bit. For any woman who's maybe looking to get into the industry, just put yourself out there, and it is a welcoming space. There are lots of amazing women in this business who would love to see you join, and who'd love to work with you. And actually, I think it's just making sure people realize that it is accessible, and look, reach out for help. Go to these organizations that we've just spoken about and find out what is out there, connect with other women. We all of us do a lot of work to try and speak to as many people as possible who show an interest and show a passion. And I will, if anyone reaches out to me, provided I have the time, because I do get quite a few, but as much as possible, I will connect and speak to anyone I can, to just let them know that this is a great job. It's a great career. Get into it. They won't regret it.
I would second all of that. Um, I would also say that when you show up with all of you, with the integrity of your work. Don't show up and think, well, this is a little indie nothing. It's not going anywhere. Those people are your community, and that's your network. So show up and do your best work. Even if you're not part of the project, be proud of your contribution to it, and just keep showing up over and over again, being your excellent self. And we want you.
Amazing. Really good advice. And I would also probably add, if you don't get a response from someone first time round, like Nina has rightly said, people get busy and mailboxes get really jammed. I know mine does on a regular basis, and I lose an email within 5 minutes. Follow up. No one
Yeah.
is ever going to mind you following up. Leave it a week, leave it 2 weeks, and then follow up and just say, just want to check in.
no one is ever going to judge you for that. That is not pestering. That is being proactive, and definitely we appreciate that because we do get busy. And I'm personally a forgetful feck, so I need a reminder. Don't know about you two.
You owe me an email, I think. So, yes, I would also say do research, right? If I get an email from someone saying, "Hey, I want to be a music engineer. Can I talk with you about your career?" Like, I don't think that's a good fit. But do research and find people who are doing what you want to do and make sure you understand and then go to them. And I'm always impressed if someone says, "Hey, I loved your work on this show or this movie, or I love the idea of this work that you do." Then I'm like, "Oh, okay, I will make time. I can have 15-minute chat with you."
Um, well, thank you both so much. I think this has been a really fascinating conversation, and I really hope that people continue to discuss this outside of this webinar because it's important that people are aware of what women have experienced, are still experiencing, and will probably continue to experience, unfortunately, within this industry. Um, so, yes, we hope we continue to discuss it. Um, We will be posting this webinar on Avid's social media channels, and we hope you will also share it so it can be reached to even more people, and especially all the men who probably haven't watched this. So please do encourage them because, as we know, we need more men allies out there. So again, thank you, Nina and Shayna.
Thank you, Emma.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to have you here. We would also like to thank the Avid Community Association for starting this conversation and allowing us to share our voices. Um, to our viewers, we invite you to be part of the Avid Community Association, gain access to content and a network of professionals that could probably help you in your career and might serve as a support group. You may scan the QR code on your screen or you can simply visit avid.com/ACA. Take a screenshot. Thanks again for joining this webinar, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.